It is 5 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call to order the work session of the East Grand Forks City Council for Tuesday, September 23rd, 2025. Please turn on your microphones, and will the city clerk please call roll?
Mayor Markleson?
Here.
Council President Brian Larson?
Here.
Council Vice President Tim Riefel?
Here.
Council Members Tammy Schumacher?
Here.
Ben Hukshavinsky?
Here.
Dale Helms?
Here.
Donald Casey? Karen Peterson?
Item number 1, request to open Wave Shop at Civic Center Arena.
Thank you, Council President, City Council, and Mayor. I have with me today Matt Stangl, and he's been working in partnership with the Wave Academy at the high school. Matt is seeking approval to open up a merchandise shop at the front concession in the Civic Center Arena. That space is currently under lease with the Blue Line Club, and part of their agreement was prior to them subletting or letting anybody else use that space, it has to come in front of the City Council for approval. Matt has reached an agreement with the Blue Line Club, and they would still utilize a portion of that space for storage, but the other portion would be used as the merchandise store. They would be selling school branded merchandise such as hoodies, t-shirts, hats, gloves, stuff like that. Anything that's kind of for sale at the Wave Shop. It would be probably a mixture of hockey apparel mixed in with just general school branded apparel. As part of the arrangement, we would ask Matt to sign a one-year lease agreement, and which we could be reevaluated at the end of the term. We'll have no budget impact on us. It won't. He'll be, working with the Blue Line Club and through the school to retrofit the space. Recommendation would be to allow Matt to use the front concession stand area at the Civic Center to open up the Wave Shop. And with that, we'll be open for any questions.
All right, any questions for Mr. King or Mr. Stengel?
Thank you, Mr. President. I have one. The lease, where would the lease money go? Does that go to the Blue Line then, or does that go to the city? Or
so there actually is no, the contract would be for $0, and it falls underneath the school lease agreement. So the city wouldn't bring in any revenue from it. Under the lease agreement we have with the school district, under paragraph J, it states the lease may operate and sell merchandise under the leasee's partnership. So the school is basically already paying for that space as part of their lease agreement that we have with the school. They're already paying for it, so there wouldn't be any fees to open the Wave Shop, and there'd be no fees for us to collect.
So how about like liability or whatever? Who's that fall under then? Does that fall under the school then?
That actually, with this agreement, and Matt, maybe you want to touch on this with the agreement that you already have with the school, but.
Yep. So the agreement that I have right now with the school is basically whoever works at the Wave Shop. We do already currently have a Wave Shop at the high school right now. What we're trying to do is expand off that, so we have one at the going to have one at the football field, and then potentially here at the Civic Center. Under that agreement states that anyone that works for me, so if it is a student via the Wave Academy, or I have other employees, they all fall under my agreement, my employment as the contract reads with the school as of right now. So any insurance, any liability is falling back onto Signature Graphics at the moment.
And part of our agreement does indemnify the city for anything that happens. If there's any accidents or anything like that, we wouldn't be responsible for that.
So then does the Blue Line, are they leasing that spot right now?
Right now, it's just storage for them.
Yeah.
They have it, and they're not using it.
Okay.
So it's just storage for them.
Okay.
So it'd be a good use of the space to get somebody in there and actually, selling some, using the space on a regular basis.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. King?
I just have one other question. So who are you employed by then, Matt? Are you employed by the high school? Because you make a profit off of this, and so does that change things slightly with the city agreement?
I'm going to take a look at the insurance aspect of that,
Sure.
but I'm not sure what
Because right now it's Signature Graphics. I'm employed by my company, Signature Graphics, and what we over the last 3 years It originally was Steph Larson. Now Chad Grassel has stepped into that role as the advisor for Wave Academy. Last year, at the end of the year, what we decided to do to make this go further with the students, get the students more involved and get everything, was to allow a private company to work with the school and this pep shop, because of the fact that we've tried for the last 3 years, but we've had teachers come, teachers go, situations like that. And so what I proposed to them is to allow me to come in, kind of be the anchor to it. And then now going forward, we have ideas to bring to their business class and marketing class. And then also we are implementing other things into the school, like into the we're going to go into the elementary schools and the middle schools to just create this idea of the Wave Shop and what it's all about, and be more community active in it and with the students. So right now, to answer your question, it would be Signature Graphics is the one that's kind of renting the space, is taking the space. I think that answers your question. I believe is that Signature Graphics is there, but it's associated with Wave Academy, if I'm answering your question correctly.
Possibly.
Is there an agreement with the school for like profit sharing, or how do you handle profits and losses?
Yep. So eventually, the students, right now it's done solely by my company, and now, starting MEA weekend, the business teacher is going to be getting more involved and actively in it, but it's taking a little bit of time to get them, but the new students and everything else. But yes, there is going to be profit sharing amongst the school, and then also, like I said, if there's a situation where if a student is working for us, they become an employee for us. So there's benefit to that as well. So, yep.
Any further questions or discussion on the topic? Okay. I see none. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to item number 2. Consider approval of Bluepeak Fiber franchise agreement. Mr. Huttunen, yes.
All right, thank you, Mr. Larson, council members. As you recall, in June, we had some representatives from Bluepeak here to propose expanding their fiber cable network into the city, which would be done in regulation with our cable franchise ordinance, which has previously been in place, and inside the provisions of that, negotiating a franchise agreement with Bluepeak. So we've been through that over the last couple of months, a number of back and forths with Bluepeak's representatives, and I believe we have the franchise agreement in a place that's acceptable for both parties. So Lucas Peterson is here with me tonight from Bluepeak. I'll let him kind of give an update on if the franchise agreement is approved by council, kind of what the next steps would look like for Bluepeak's design and potential build out of the system.
Great. Thank you for having me here again, and thanks to Reid and city staff for helping us fine-tune the franchise to get it before you here tonight. As Reid mentioned, I want to just give a little bit of an update on kind of the process that would follow if the council approves the franchise agreement. Upon approval of the agreement, our design and engineer team would then have a meeting over the next couple months with the appropriate city staff to go over the initial design build of the network in East Grand Forks, go through kind of the detailed distribution areas where we propose to put the facilities, and where we propose to do construction, put together a timeline of when we want to build each area, of course with gathering input from the city of when would be best, if there's things we need to work around based on what the city has going on. Then we would take that input, put it into a final fiber design and construction, have finalized that timeline, kind of build out from when we want to have things completed by, when we need permits submitted, approved, and have those designs to the city. We would look to start construction probably mid-May, depending on weather and when we can get in the ground. Typically, that is typical construction start time for us, and we would finish construction, doing underground construction, end of September typically, so that we could have everything finished out end of October. Right now, in our current plans, it would just be a one-year build, so it would be construction for 1 year. There's about 9 distribution areas in East Grand Forks, and that's less than what we typically build in a year in this long of a build season. So we feel like it's definitely doable. We can do it and do it the right way and make sure everything's buttoned up and in that time. If the weather changes the length of the build season, or there's things we need to work with the city and we have to delay something, that might delay it into a second year. But right now we feel pretty confident we can be able to knock it out in a year and do it, do a good job with it. So just appreciate your consideration of the cable franchise agreement. Be happy to answer any questions and provide any information that you would like.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Huttunen and Mr. Peterson?
I just have something. I think it's great that you guys are coming to town. Give us some options. I'm hoping that everything works out and it can be up and running by next year. Because I know I've talked to people in Grand Forks that have it and they really are enjoying it. I think it runs great. The options that you guys have for TVs and stuff like that, but mostly it's the internet service that they're talking about. But I appreciate that you guys worked with our staff to get this done and move forward. So, thanks.
Thank you.
Any further comments? Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you again.
Okay, let's move on. VFW Memorial Arena Refrigeration System.
Thank you again, Council President, City Council, and Mayor. As most of you are aware already, back at the end of August when we started up the compressor system at the VFW Arena, we had a failure in the floor there, and we lost a good portion of our refrigeration. Since then, we've had the floor fixed, we've had it repaired, we've had it vacuumed out, and we're now to the point where we need to put R22 refrigerant back into the floor to make it operational. We currently have about 1,000 pounds of R22 on hand that the city already owns, but we feel that we need an additional 3,000 pounds on hand to get the system fully operational. The lowest price that we found for R22 pretty much throughout the region, tri-state area, really across the whole U.S. is $30.49 a pound, and that comes locally here from RHI in Grand Forks. When we put the refrigeration back into the system, we'd look at it as a tiered approach where we'd put in our own R22 that we have on hand. We'd put that in first. We'd turn the system on. We'd get it operating, make sure that there's no other malfunctions or anything that are happening. And then with the additional R22 that we would purchase, we would slowly start adding that back into the system until we feel like we get a good amount in there, probably close to an additional 2,000 to 2,500 pounds, hoping that we don't have to add all 3,000 pounds. When we feel that the system is running adequate with the amount of R22 on hand, then we'll quit adding it. Any R22 that isn't added back to the system will be able to be returned to the vendor at a full refund. So we're trying to do it strategically to add as little R22 back into it, knowing that this system just has to get us through one more season. When the season is complete, we can then pull all the R22 out of it and sell it back, reclaim to a distributor for between $4 and $5 per pound. And the reason there's a drastic price difference there is because they have to then clean the R22 before it can go back out for resale. Without the VFW arena, that's obviously a pretty essential facility for us for winter activities and then the programming that we offer. we could have to move, it typically has about 8 hours of programming per day from the time it starts until the time that it's shut off. We have 2 figure skating test sessions there. We have the Northern Star figure skating competition. We have 2 North-South Challenge tournaments there, which are a tournament where teams come up from the Metro and a couple Northern teams meet to play there. And we have 3 different sets of district tournaments there. So it'd be a lot of events that would either have to possibly be moved or canceled, which would have an economic impact on the community if we're not bringing all those events in. On just our participants alone, without having that floor, we'd probably scheduling the two rinks that we still have will be going every morning, and then you could add probably an extra hour at night. So it would be some hardship on our own participants. So the budget impact, what I'm asking for tonight is the request to purchase the 3,000 pounds of R22. The quote came in at $91,463.91. We do still have the option. We don't know if it'll be covered by our insurance or not, but we do have the option to submit the insurance claim. Speaking with the League of Minnesota Cities about that, we have some coverage, but it would go to a third party to decide whether this would fall under a claim for us. So we need to make the purchase, submit the claim, and then they would go to this third party and then decide if this falls under our coverage or not. So there is an opportunity there for us to get some of this reimbursed in insurance as well. With that, I'd be open for questions.
Mr. President, Jeremy, thank you for all the information. So it's the VFW that needs it.
Mm-hmm.
The Civic Center also uses R22, and does the Blue Line Arena use the R22?
The Civic Center, when the new compressor was installed in either 21 or 22, they switched over to a R449 refrigerant, and the Blue Line Arena is on a 404A, I think, refrigerant. So they're all 3 on different refrigerants. So we wouldn't have a use for this refrigerant once we're done with it.
Sure. That was going to be my question, because it seems, when we recover it from the system at the end of this year, we're taking a pretty big hit there.
Right.
And, I understand we have to clean it, so it's not like we can save it and then, if another city comes calling, just give them,
right,
sell it to them. And I don't even know are we even legally allowed to do that?
No, you need to have
an EPA standards.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my only question there.
The other thing I should add is we would use repairs and maintenance funds out of the Parks and Rec budget. Wouldn't necessarily all be right out of the line item for the VFW arena, but feel comfortable that we wouldn't have to go outside the Parks and Rec budget to make this purchase, that we have the ability to move over some other funds within our own budget to cover this.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a couple questions for you. It seems to me I kind of remember talking about this back a year or so ago when we started talking about all this arena stuff, and I thought, I remember you saying that we had sufficient amount of Freon available. Did you use some, or were you talking some of the other stuff?
I might have been talking about some of the other rinks. I guess I don't remember saying that. This, as far as that facility goes, this is just about, worst case scenario. All the other systems have a glycol running through the floor. This is a direct system, meaning it's fully refrigerated with a refrigerant, in this case R22, where all the new systems will all be, the Civic Center is already indirect, meaning it has glycol running through the floor, and the Blue Line is indirect glycol running through the floor. The new system will also be indirect glycol running through the floor. So for this particular rink, this was basically worst case scenario as far as losing refrigerant. But I don't remember, I guess I don't remember commenting on if we had a full charge or not.
I guess my next question would be, and I think I remember you also saying that you thought that there was some other arenas around the area that maybe would have some Freon that we could purchase.
did.
Is that not true, or?
We have reached out to just about every vendor, every arena, every other person that is willing to listen to us to try to find the cheapest, most easiest way to get R22. But all kind of fell upon deaf ears. If we were asking for 100 or 200 pounds, it sounds like there'd be some people that'd be willing to help us out, and we could maybe broker a deal where when we're done with the R22, we could give it back to them. But unfortunately, for just the quantity that we're looking for now, those arrangements aren't there anymore.
Okay, thank you.
So basically this, I mean, when you look at this and the idea that, yes, it is definitely a cost to the city, however, it's more than just a monetary cost. It definitely would have an impact on some of these programs moving forward and the athletes that do participate in some of these sports. And truly the economic impact also on the city would be huge if we did not support this decision. And so it sounds to me like you have a really great plan in place. You're going to do your best to conserve the amount of R22 that you do put in, that we're purchasing at this price, right?
Yep, absolutely.
And so I think it is a good decision, personally.
Mr. Rico.
There's another reason that we need to get this new arena done, because years ago, when we were looking at the R22, it was 50% of the price it is now. And that's why the groups that got it, they don't want to give it away. Because if they have to replace theirs, in case they have a little accident like we had, we're just another accident away from that rink closing anyway. I mean, that pipe bust,
Yeah, and that's why, to Karen's point, why we'd be very strategic on how we handle it. We'd have a full-time refrigeration tech on site when we start this process. We'd put the R22 that we already own would go in first. Make sure that it's cycling all the way through the system, that it's getting all the way through the floor, that it's, before we add any of the additional R22 that we've purchased, we'd be as sure as we could be that the system is operating properly. And then the next thing would be, only adding enough of the refrigerant to make sure that it can make it through the season.
Thank you. What's the cost of the new stuff that you'll be using? Do you know how much? And is that sold by the pound also, or how's that?
I don't know that number off the top of my head.
Okay.
You're referring to the ammonia system?
Pardon?
You're referring to the proposed ammonia system?
Yes. I was just wondering if you knew what the cost of that was. Okay.
Any further questions or comments?
All right, thank you.
Let's move on to item number 4 then. Discussion on engine brake ordinance.
Thank you. At our last work session, it was brought forward to consider a possible engine brake ordinance. The question was asked what regional cities do in our area. So we reached out to Crookston, Bemidji, Thief River, Moorhead, and Detroit Lakes. Bemidji and Moorhead do not have anything in place, but on the RCA is what Crookston, Detroit Lakes, and Thief River have in place. So I guess with that information, just looking to see what council would like to do, and if you want to direct staff to, or Ron, to start looking into this and start drafting an ordinance for the city or not.
Any questions for Megan? Go ahead, Mayor.
One of the questions after the discussion that we had and then looking at this is, how is this enforced? I guess that's my main question, is how would we enforce this? I know some of these say misdemeanor. I'm just...
I guess from what I've seen, and the chief wants to come up and talk, from what I've seen.
I guess if Chief, you've had experience with it, or anybody else, I'd be willing to listen.
I honestly don't have any experience in dealing with this. Mr. Wallstead mentioned previously, there's some issues with trying to determine how exactly is it in violation. So I think that's the biggest problem. As long as we had it clearly defined in the ordinance, we certainly could take enforcement action, but if it's like using a decibel meter, we would have to have those. Which I'm honestly not sure if we have any in those cars or not. I don't believe so. It's not typically something we're doing.
I mean, I guess how would we put out the education for the area? I mean, I guess my thought process is what signage is going to be put up? Are we going to have some information to who? I mean,
we could certainly do education through the police department's Facebook, social media, as well as the city's on the website. We could do press releases, but it's not going to get to everybody, obviously.
I mean, one of the biggest things we have every fall is we have the sugar beet, and there's always new drivers. And, I mean, is that going to be part of the owner of that farm to make sure that that driver is well aware of that there is this ordinance? I don't know. I'm just trying to see how we can make this work.
That's absolutely one of the challenges.
And I guess the only thing I'll point out is Crookston and Thief River talk about noises, whereas Detroit Lake says it prohibits them completely. So I guess just to make enforcement easier, it would, that would, putting up signs. Yeah. But it's up to you guys on how you would like to move
Do we know
forward.
if those towns have any records of they've issued tickets?
That I don't know of, and I know Detroit Lakes, theirs, I think, was just enacted in 2024. I just took off the dates. I think they just started with it in 2024, but I can reach out and find out.
No, I'm just curious.
If you'd like, I can reach out to their police department and see what they do for enforcement as well.
Because Meiji and Moret don't have anything of this, correct?
Correct.
So, Moret has Crystal Sugar also there, and others. Yeah. Right, that's what I had.
I'm curious how, we have Highway 2 coming through town. How does that work from a jurisdictional, who would have authority over a truck on Highway 2 while it's in the city of East Grand Forks? It's also on a state highway.
Three different agencies could have enforcement. Ourselves, East Grand Forks Police, the county sheriff's offices could, as well as the state patrol on both 220 and Highway 2. So it's all three of us have jurisdiction in those areas.
Is the city able to place these type of restrictions on a state highway?
That I don't know.
Yeah. I'd recommend maybe we spend some more time just kind of working through some of the questions on the enforcement and our realistic ability to enforce this, if that's the wishes of the council before we take it to it.
Sure. Absolutely. We'll answer.
One other question too is how about Grand Forks? What do they have?
I don't believe
Beat
they
on
do.
Highway 2.
Seen any signs?
Yeah. We'll double check.
Any other questions or thoughts on have staff do overtime and get it back at a later date? Thank you for what you put forward so far.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to item number 5 then. Discussion on request for mobile sauna business. Ms. Nelson.
Okay. A while ago, I was contacted by a gentleman who was talking about a sauna business. It first was going to be in a permanent structure and turned into a mobile venture instead. Some time has passed and he's reached out again. So I'm bringing before the council because currently right now we do have sauna as a part of our city ordinance, but it's also under the massage parlor. Massage parlors we do not currently allow to be mobile. So I guess a couple questions that I have, because he's already up and operating in Grand Forks and would like to offer services to the residents in East Grand Forks as well, and has been calling, been doing everything up front, asking many questions, wants to do this the right way. So I guess a couple questions that I have are looking for direction on if we should add mobile sauna ordinance, or if we just take sauna out of the massage ordinance, so it's something completely separate? Or is this something that you guys don't feel that there needs to be a city business license for, because there's many businesses that we do not license? So kind of looking for direction on that. And then just to point out that I did find the city of Minneapolis does allow for mobile saunas, and I did include their ordinance that currently, or that just went into place in April, I believe. So, looking for direction.
Any questions or discussion to start that?
I think if I may just, in the options Megan passed along, the one recommendation I would make is that we do continue to license it in some fashion, understanding that a mobile sauna unit may be operating within residential neighborhoods. Somebody could order a mobile sauna to be at their house, right? It could be a consideration if it's allowed in a city park or a city parking lot. Those things would all be good, I think, for the city to have some knowledge of, so we could put some public notice out if there was a sauna operating in a city-owned space or in a park. Whether that be under the existing ordinance that speaks to massage, or it's a standalone, I think we can work through that with direction from you all. But I wouldn't recommend that we don't license it at all. I think there should be some license and notification procedure in place.
Yeah, Mrs. Nelson did reach out and did some research on it. There is no, that I could find, no fire code that is directed towards that. So we did have some safety concerns, but in doing research, I reached out to Grand Forks Fire Marshal. They're dealing with it, and all of my concerns were answered. It's CE listed, which is a European version of the UL listing. So it's been through all the testing, and the safety stuff is in place. Carbon monoxide, fire blankets, portable fire extinguishers. So it seems legit to me.
Well, Reid, I think that we should bring it forward in the next.
Council President Larson, we'll certainly continue to work on it with Megan's support and Mr. Gallstead giving some input. I wouldn't promise timeliness of next meeting. If it's an ordinance change, one of the conversations we had with Chief Bushy yesterday about the fire side of it is this specific request for this unit is a wood burning unit. But it doesn't mean that some other mobile unit in the future may want to use liquid propane as an example instead, and that could open up a different variation of what's acceptable. So before we pass an ordinance, we should take the time to make sure we vet all of those, but we could certainly bring it forward.
Future meeting is a better way to put it.
Yeah.
And,
Thank you. I think the question right now that Reid and Megan are looking for is, should we keep this lumped in with the massage parlor, or should we have it as a standalone ordinance? For me, I almost feel like it'd be better to have it as a separate than massage parlor, because a massage parlor is, in my opinion, completely different than a sauna. So I think we should separate them, and I think that we should give that direction tonight instead of asking staff to, look into it further. I guess that would be my opinion.
Yeah, my comment would be to separate it out as well, and we could deal with it on that line. And then at the same time, we would be looking at potentially modifying the massage parlor ordinance. Doesn't have to be in conjunction with each other, but that's how I would do it, or my recommendation anyway.
The hours of operation show on the Minneapolis one 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. I think we can
maybe change that a little bit too.
What do you recommend?
I'm going to recommend more 9 in the morning till 10 at night.
Okay. We can include that.
Question I have is going to go back Chief Bushy. When we had our discussions back about the wood burning in the backyards, stoves, is this not the same concern that we had for distance from residents, houses?
Yeah, so we have a policy now that we have distance requirements for recreational burning. So we kind of looked at it as a recreational under the same guise. The other thing with the solid fuel burners was the amount of wood to be piled in the yards and stuff. That was a concern.
Right.
So we kind of lumped it in with the recreational burning that we do allow now. But yeah, we
Define recreational burning.
Mm-hmm.
What is recreational burning?
Campfire.
Okay.
Out in the yard.
Just want to make sure everybody knew that.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the garage.
I think Mr. Paczynski is correct. I think we need to separate it. Mr. Gall says correct. I think timelines, I think we can discuss when it can be operational. You know, I'll just go against Mr. Riopella saying some people like it in the morning earlier. You can be the first customer.
I don't want to be a customer.
Well, we can bring a draft, and if you guys want to make any changes, we'll bring it back to work session, and then before we bring it to a council meeting. So any changes you guys recommend, we can make those before the first reading. Okay.
Any other comments on the topic? Okay, let's move on to item number 6, requesting discussion and direction on the Lease lieutenant position. Mr. Huttunen.
All right, thanks again, Council President. And Chief Edlund is going to support me with this one. Prior to the September 2nd council meeting, that evening, there was a request that we take a pause on filling or promoting the lieutenant position in the department with an idea of having a better understanding of the budget impact the lieutenant role plays in the department and the structure of the department if the lieutenant remains as it's previously been filled or if we would not fill the lieutenant position. So I did pass out to each of the council members kind of a look at the budget impact of the position, and I'll walk through those. And then Chief Edlund, I'll let him speak a little bit on the organizational structure that was included in the online packet. As it stands today, within the department, the lieutenant position is budgeted at a grade 18, step 10. That has a total compensation, not including health insurance, total wages, para, FICA compensation of $123, $114, $95. The investigator drug task force commander position is funded at that same dollar amount, grade 18, step 10. And then in the investigations unit that's rounded out by a drug task force investigator at a grade 17, step 10, that has a total compensation of $114, $768. Making a total for those three, $316, $998, $20. That's kind of the scenario we're under right now. With the Mr. Schrage that was selected for the promotion, if he was approved by council, he would move into that same, it'd be a lateral move from a pay standpoint, grade 18, step 10. And then there'd be likely similar lateral movement with the assignment of a new drug task force commander and potential promotions. But as it stands there today, that's the way it looks from a budget perspective. If the lieutenant position was to be left vacant, we would still need to fill an investigator role within the department. The department has, at a minimum, over its history, operated with 2 employees in general investigations and 1 employee as a drug task force investigator. So the bottom portion of that page looks at that. The drug task force commander would remain at that grade 18, step 10. The drug task force investigator would remain in its current pay grade and step of grade 17, step 10. And then likely there would be an internal assignment of a new investigator that would again move into that grade 17, and likely, depending upon if it's it would be an existing employee within the department that would be assigned to an investigator role. Likely they would fall into a step 8 or 9. For the purpose of the budget, I used a step 9, and that total compensation would be $111,398. So under the, if it's a restructured look without filling the lieutenant as it is today, that total cost to those 3 positions would be $349,281, or in total, an estimated savings of just short of $12,000, $11,716. So that would be kind of the financial impact of leaving the lieutenant position vacant as it relates to the structure and how the department would operate and function. I'll pass that to Chief Hedlund for any comments he has.
Thank you. We brought this forward previously with a change to the job description of the lieutenant position. It's been some administrative duties in the past, but it's been largely an investigative position. The thought process was to try to take on some additional administrative duties with that position while still remaining an active investigator as well. I believe that's going to be a benefit to our department if we do ultimately do that. Majority of the departments throughout our region have more than one administrator. Most have actually 2 full-time administrators. We did consider that as an option. That was one of the discussions that Mr. Huttunen and Mayor Olsted and I had, and that just realistically isn't fiscally feasible for our department at this point in time. It would result in us having to add another full-time position, which just isn't realistic. So if we were going to try to move on and still add some administrative capacity, it would basically have to be in this lieutenant's role, where we would be splitting the position between part general crimes investigation and then part administration. And obviously the duties would vary depending on the week. If we were having a heavy crime week with some very involved investigations, that person might be doing almost exclusively investigations. If it was a lighter time period, they might be able to provide some additional assistance to me. And largely, one of the big areas I would be looking for that person to assist with is policy development and review. In all reality, our policy should be reviewed annually at least, and while our policies are electronic and it doesn't take as long as it once did to get them revised and reviewed, the majority of them don't get reviewed every year, to be honest with you. Some of them, I think I have everything within at least 2 years, but it's not as often as it should be. That would be an area I could certainly use some assistance, as well as obviously other areas within the department. I feel the fiscal cost is low enough that it's worth moving forward with the position. I think the benefit to our department is significant personally.
Any questions for Mr. Huttunen or Chief Hedlund? Go ahead, Mr. Helms.
Thank you, Mr. President. So are you asking for one or the other here then, either the lieutenant or the investigator, or is that what you're kind of?
If we would move forward with the lieutenant as we initially had planned to, Sergeant Shraga would move into the lieutenant's position, and then we would still have an opening. When Lieutenant Hychek retired, that created an opening in investigations. So since Sergeant Shraga is already one of our investigators, it still leaves an opening for an investigator. So regardless, if he were to remain as a sergeant in investigations, we have an open investigation spot. If he moves into the lieutenant's role, it shifts some duties, but we still have an open investigation slot. So we'll need to add an investigator basically either way.
So that investigator, would that be something that would have to be added like pretty quick, or is that something that could be put off for a little bit until we work through the budget and all this kind of stuff? I mean, what I'm asking is, I guess, is if we went ahead with the lieutenant thing, you're not going to come back to the next work session and say, I want to hire an investigator, is what I'm getting at, or can it be pushed down the road just a little bit until?
Well, there really isn't any cost savings because they'd be a current employee.
Yeah.
I guess there would be a slight cost savings because the person that would be put into that position would be at a sergeant. But I guess I'm not quite sure how to answer your question. We have been going without this position for already for over 2 months. Lieutenant Hychek left on July 2nd, so we're closing in rapidly on 3 months without that position filled. We're asking a lot of our 2 investigators currently to be doing the work of 3 people with only 2 of them. So I guess, yes, my intent would be to move the position forward as fast as possible.
Okay. Well, I guess I would highly recommend that we went ahead with the lieutenant position as required or as proposed, simply because I think we need a second in command. Because when the chief is gone, you know, we've got to have somebody that can take over and run things. And and the one that was currently hired for that spot is, as they said here, he's the drug task force commander, which is a bigger force than what the police department is. So I think he can handle it.
It's not, but it is significant.
Pretty huge. I mean, it works with a lot of different people.
Yes, it
You know,
involves
so-
a number of different agencies in a
Yeah.
very large region. It covers an 8-county area.
Yeah.
But the staff members are definitely.
Yeah, but it's still, I think it's still something that we need to have that second commander. I think for, and being the, you know, the pay scale is not really changing any on it. I don't see any reason why we couldn't do that, but that's.
Thank you for bringing up the second in command part. I neglected to mention that. That is, in my opinion, an important factor as well. With Lieutenant Hychek here, we had a clearly defined second in command. So if I wasn't available, he was clearly the person that was in charge. If you take that away, you go back to essentially it would be the senior sergeant and or the senior sergeant on duty, or senior officer on duty. Could be a corporal, could be an officer, depending on the day. We probably have to write that up in a policy. But it's certainly cleaner if you have a clearly defined second in command.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess that was my question, Chief, and probably of Attorney Gulstead as well. If we do not hire the lieutenant, we don't have that position second in command, what are the potential legal liabilities should something major in the city happen and the person leading everything is a sergeant because Chief Hedlund happens to be out of town? I mean, that's a big gap from lieutenant to sergeant. That's a big responsibility.
I'd have to look at what you just asked me. I can't just talk off the top of my head what the legal responsibilities are. I have been not involved in the structure of the East Grand Forks Police Department, so at this point, I don't have any position to even take. I'd have to look at it.
Didn't mean to catch you off guard.
No,
but
that's okay. Thank you.
I have a tendency to spit out what I'm thinking. What are your thoughts on?
I don't know whether it would bring on additional liability. Certainly at night, our sergeants are making command decisions as is. The sergeant or the corporal, if the sergeant's off duty, they're the ranking officer on duty at nighttime anyway. So it kind of takes that another further step. But typically, either myself or Lieutenant Hychek would have been available by phone should they run into any particular situation that they needed guidance. We do have very good staff that is quite capable of making those decisions. I'm not worried about the fact that it's a sergeant. It's just more, as I mentioned, just a cleaner chain of command, line of duty if you have that lieutenant position.
Thank you.
With ISO being as our task force commander, do we lose that if he becomes lieutenant? Can he still maintain that position?
He would probably like to maintain that position. My personal opinion is that we would need him to switch. He's currently part-time task force commander, part-time general crimes investigator. If he's going to take on administrative roles within the police department, I think he needs to give up the task force commander. Who becomes the next task force commander, if we make that decision, that's up to the task force board. We have an officer that's a member of the task force that is actually one of the more senior officers on the task force at this point in time. He would certainly be up for consideration, but there are other people on the task force that might be interested in the position as well.
So it's not an automatic for us?
It's not an automatic, no. So there's a possibility that could remain within our department, but it's also possible we want the task force officers from a different agency.
Okay. Food for thought.
I just want to be clear that my concern is not with filling this position. I mean, I believe it's very much needed. My concern is making sure we have the right fit for it. But I absolutely agree we need it. That's all I have.
Any further questions? Mayor Olstead.
This is the process we probably should have been looking at a couple months ago, walking through this and making sure that how the department's set up. Given the fact that we know within the next year, year and a half that, retirement's coming up. And this goes through, I've had this discussion with other department heads and throughout this city over this last 6 months. But I think it's something that we need to make sure that the way it's set up, the way it's running, how does it work? Switching it over to mostly a lot of admin, I know we've had discussions on it, but I think that's something that really needs to be, set straight. If we're going to have him, whoever it is, running off and doing the most important work, is doing out in the public instead of sitting in there, is that going to work? I don't know. But I think having the 3 investigators is important. That would leave, we'd have to hire another officer, correct?
We have an opening currently
Right.
within the department, yes, we actually have given a conditional offer to an applicant for an officer position, and that's the background is just in the process. We haven't even received that back yet, but so we are working to fill an officer position, and then after that, it's just the shuffling of positions within the department.
Okay. I just, I don't think our next meeting is September, October 7th?
Yeah.
So next week's the 5th Tuesday. So luckily nothing would happen, be brought forth till then, correct?
Yeah, that's
Can you
correct.
walk through that?
Yeah, I'd be looking for direction on bringing the item back for the October 7th meeting.
Okay. I think it needs to be brought forth and put on the agenda and go from there, so.
Any further comments or discussion? So with that, I think we should put it on the agenda for October 7th.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to item number 7. Interest in sale or lease of decommissioned wastewater pond property.
Thank you again, Mr. President. The decommissioned wastewater ponds up on the north end, we have had some interest from a party that is wondering if the city has desires to enter into a lease agreement and/or sell the property. It is a non-public agency. If you recall, those that were on council, we did have a purchase agreement in place previously with another public agency. And so that process for sale looked a little different than this one would. So I'm seeking direction from the council on if there is desire to initiate a sale or lease potential on the property. What I would recommend if we are interested in that is that we write a request for proposals that would include a bid procedure so that any interested parties in the property would have an opportunity to be able to tell us what they plan to use it for, if it's a development, how they would plan to develop it, and then as part of that, what they'd be willing to offer to purchase or lease the property. And those would be able to be reviewed by city staff and ultimately brought to city council for consideration. And it would not have to necessarily be a sale to the best price or the highest bidder. It could be considered based on how they would intend to use it as one of the criteria, along with the criteria of the offered price, to determine whether or not the city wanted to enter into an agreement like that. So that'd be the direction I'm looking for. Maybe just kind of talk through some of the background of the property itself. I'll think if I can get to the map here. The primary property that we're talking about is the decommissioned wastewater ponds. We have a described tract that we have this legal description for. The primary area of the old ponds being about 304 acres. That would allow the city to retain around 60 acres in the area where the existing equalization basin is, that's in use with the interconnect project, and then an additional section in this area for either future expansion, if there was ever a need to expand the EQ basin, or storage of snow in the winter months when we move snow. We've been using it to dump snow in its current state. So about 303 acres here, the area not in the woods. This would be the actual tillable acreage. And then there is an existing tract north of, I think it's 450th Street, that is tillable acreage there as well. That is about 41 acres of tillable acreage. Those would be the two primary that we'd be looking at. There could be some discussion. Jason and I were discussing this earlier this week. There's property to the east side of the north-south road. Those that are familiar with the RC Flyers have an airfield here. You can kind of see that depicted in the picture where there's grass growing. We wouldn't look to enter into any different agreement that would challenge the RC Flyers' ability to use the space. But we could look at leasing or selling the acreage north and south of the RC Flyers. You can see that just there's a little sliver of that field that's city-owned in those two areas that together add up to about 38 acres. We haven't had that surveyed, but together add up to those. So we could include that in the discussion if there's interest in looking at, it'd be a total of 4 parcels to potentially sell or lease. And if there's interest in that, then how would you like staff to go about it? Should we put a request for proposals together with an advertised period that people could review and submit their request?
Thanks, Reid. Any questions for Mr. Huttunen? Mr. Helms?
Thank you. I kind of have mixed feelings on both of it. I'd like to have it sold and be done with it, but at the same time, is there anything that the city would ever need it for? Would we ever, is there, we all know if Henry was still sitting here, we know it'd be a park, but that's beside the point. But is it something that we would ever have to, that we'd ever need that for? I mean, because it's, I just don't want to, I'd hate to sell it and then get ourselves in a bind. I don't know if I could really see a whole lot of development going that way too much along that particular area right there. But I mean, I can see us going on the, like where the golf course, that stuff is. But,
right.
But that'd be my only concern, is if it would be something that we would need down the road. So I'm kind of have mixed feelings on if I'd want to lease it or sell it.
Yeah. I'll maybe just give a quick thought, and then I see Chief Edlin maybe has thoughts too. It's hard to know, as it stands today, the discussion has been that we don't have a need for it. The property is north of and outside of our flood protection system, the city's flood protection system, and it is north and outside of city limits. So to see it reach to the level of potential residential development, I'd say that's long down the horizon, outside of our 50-year plan. Our land use plan. It doesn't reach to that level at this point. When we had the previous purchase agreement in place on it, we had an appraisal done at that time, and the highest and best use defined by that appraisal was for ag or crop production use. And we do know that there may be question to that with it being a former wastewater pond. Is it eligible to be used for that? Yes, it is. There was a time period where it was restricted and what could be harvested and used off of it by the USDA. That time period has lapsed. So it is tillable. It could produce a crop. The question there would be more of what kind of crop could you produce, understanding what the soils are like and what the conditions of the soils are. So it may have some limitation to its use and its value for that purpose.
I would guess that the land is like free and clear to the city, right now? I mean, so
yes,
it's not costing us anything, so I guess I'd probably lean a little more toward leasing it for farm purposes, and then if we ever did, for any reason, need it for something, why we'd still be able to to do that. I don't know, I guess, I think, with what you get for acre now, it'd still be a pretty nice little income coming in, 340 acres or something.
Yeah.
So I guess I'd probably lean that way a little bit more, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe the chief will change my mind here, I don't know.
Thank you, Mr. Helms.
I just wanted to point out that the police department firing range is adjacent to this property. So that would, I guess in my mind, need to be taken into consideration for any type of development down there. If it was farming, I wouldn't see any issue whatsoever. If it were some other type of development, the landowner would just need to understand that the police department's range is right adjacent to that property, so that could affect the potential use by them. If it were to the point where we wouldn't be able to use that range, then the city would obviously need to be having property at another location for us to redevelop into a range. It's it is something that we absolutely have to have. So I just want to make sure that's kept in mind.
Yeah, I was just going to say, keep in mind that this is out of city limits, even though we own it. It would be under Polk County's jurisdiction in terms of how it's used. So we can sell it with the idea that we can decide how, if we're going to sell it for a certain development, but they'd still have to get permission from Polk County to use it. As far as development goes, I know when I was with Polk County, the amount that you'd have to build up that property to get it out of the floodplain is going to be pretty significant. So I don't foresee a lot of high-density residential. And then we would still review, because it's within our 2-mile radius, we would still review it if it's a subdivision. But as far as when it comes to a use, if there's a public hearing, we would be able to provide input, but we would not be the decision makers once it's sold. So
There's no taxable value for us either, for property tax, so.
No.
Lease looks good.
I think that's one of the things that when we look at this process, if someone's going to come in and say, let's say we have 3-4 people and X number 3 gets it, and that'd be our process, that they'd have to have everything in line with the state and county if it was a permitting or licensing process for them. So I think everybody should know that, but just make sure. I mean, I know the people probably around there maybe want to use it to grow something, or whatever use would be, but we just got to make sure that we go through the process and have it in our language. Well, if you're not permitted or licensed by the state, it's null and void. So
Right. Okay. Any further comments or discussion? I guess I would just add, I am interested in kind of going to market, for lack of a better term, to see what interest is out there. We would want to reserve the right to decline all offers. And obviously, if the right offer isn't out there, we shouldn't jump into anything. I tend to agree with Mr. Helms on the lease. That might be a better long-term thing, but I try to reserve judgment until we saw what creative ideas are out there.
Or what the ag market. Do you know, Reid, have we gone as far as like soil samples to really understand like the quality of the agricultural soil out there?
The city hasn't ordered soil samples itself, but when MMPA had the purchase agreement on it, they did phase 1 and phase 2 environmental, and we have the results of those studies.
Would that be something that we would share with the potential proposers?
At your direction, I think maybe that would have some discussion we may want to have in regard to the property values itself. Maybe not in this forum.
Yeah, maybe not, and I'm thinking out loud.
Yeah.
Just, like you said, agricultural land is probably the most likely use here.
Yeah.
But people need to understand what this can grow. If it's sugar beets or if it's sorghum, that's going to be a wildly different lease offer, I think.
Correct. Yeah, I would expect at some degrees, to some level, we would need to, in the request for proposals, offer the detail of the property and what we know of it. Yeah.
But I think back to my original point, putting out a request for proposals to see what interest is out there, there is really no harm there. We just understand what the private side thinks it's worth, and then this group can discuss next steps.
Okay.
Okay. Any further discussion on that topic? Okay, if not, that takes us to the end of our agenda. We'd be looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Helms. Is there a second? Second by Leopold. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Meeting is closed. We'll ask the council to stick around for a closed meeting.